there were shockwaves all over social media this weekend because Newsweek published a hit piece against Taylor Swift, alleging that she is a bad role model for young girls. And this was written by a man named John McLoyne. Basically, he's saying that Taylor Swift could condemn an entire generation of young women to a life of cat litter, boxed wine, and spinsterhood, because her dating life is on full display, and it provides a terrible example to all of the young women who idolize her. So before we make any pronouncements, I did want to just clarify that Newsweek does this all the time. They publish opinion pieces that they don't necessarily agree with so that they can pit it against another opinion piece that's on the opposite side. And I think that's kind of cool. So at the same time, they published another one by Matt Freeman that's titled Taylor Swift, the Generous Role Model. And it's a debate that they set up so that people can talk about this stuff. They're not saying like, we agree with everything this guy says.
Yeah.
But anyway, his article states, Swift is now the most influential celebrity in America, which is probably true. Her popularity is staggering and her position as a cultural colossus is unquestionable. At 34, Taylor Swift remains unmarried and childless, a fact that some might argue is irrelevant to her status as a role model. But I suggest it's crucial to consider what kind of example this sets for young girls. A role model, by definition, is someone worthy of imitation. While Swift's musical talent and business acumen are certainly admirable, we must ask if her personal life choices are ones we want our sisters and daughters to emulate. This might sound like pearl clutching, but it's a concern rooted in sound reasoning. So he goes on to explain that her dating history is basically a revolving door of all of these men in her life that usually are public figures. He says that it's hypocritical for her to rail against the patriarchy, but at the same time only date men who are highly powerful and rich. But to me, that just seems like a self-explanatory thing because she's powerful and rich, so obviously she's going to date other powerful rich people. But essentially, here's what he said. This revolving door of relationships may reflect the normal dating experiences of many young women in today's world, but it also raises questions about stability, commitment, and love itself. Should we encourage young girls to see the Swift standard as the norm, something to aspire to? Or should we be promoting something a little more, shall we say, wholesome? Would any loving parent reading this want their daughter to date 12 different men in the span of just a few years? This is not an attack on Swift. It's a valid question that is worth asking. So basically, he's just saying that, you know, she is presenting the idea that going through breakups is no big deal. You can always frame yourself as the victim. You don't need to, you know, dwell on any of the mistakes you might have made. Well, that's you can kind of just use people like tissues.
In 2024, a shocking amount of people have suddenly become toxic narcissists, and it's always at the hand of somebody who's just been broken up by. Every girl you know has dated at least 10 toxic narcissists, despite the fact that that's like a very, very small amount of the population actually qualify as somebody with narcissistic personality disorder. Every girl, the worst girl you know, has somehow dated all of them.
Well, it's also self-selecting, right? Because Taylor Swift is dating mostly Hollywood actors who are the most effeminate men on the planet and some of the actually most narcissistic men that you can find in society. So why are we surprised that she keeps having negative experiences with them? But I'm sure if Alex Clark were here or one of the Swifties, like, she would come up with a million different examples of where Taylor Swift actually took the blame for her own relationship failures. But I can only think of one example, and that was like the song that she made about her relationship with Taylor Lautner. Okay. She made one song where she admitted fault for anything. The rest of them were all about how much of a victim she was. So that is a pretty valid point for him to make. He said, however, the glamorous portrayal of her romantic life can send objectionable messages. Many of her lyrics depict her as the victim. This might influence young women to adopt a similar perspective in their own relationships.
I just realized it. She's, you know how like whenever Kino Corner make the video series, they're literally me?
She's literally
me to all the women of that are growing up now.
Quite literally.
Literally me.
Because, you know, you can listen to any Taylor Swift album and connect it to your life because
I mean, that just means she's good at what she does.
Yeah, that's the
means
point.
She's talented, but yeah.
Yeah. He says Swift's numerous high-profile relationships, while private matters are constantly in the public eye. New romances become media frenzies, while breakups fuel gossip columns. This cycle of brief, intense relationships can unintentionally glamorize a type of romantic promiscuity where partners can be replaced as easily as toilet paper.
If you're a mildly attractive woman in America, men can be replaced that easily.
Well, that's the thing. He's saying, you know, she shouldn't be the role model
I'm not saying
because
that's a good thing. I'm just saying
her
it is
life
true.
is exceptional for a lot of different reasons. So ordinary young women shouldn't see her as something to emulate. And he also said, although breakups can hurt both males and females, it's the latter group that tends to feel more emotional pain. But Taylor Swift makes breakups look easy. In reality, they are messy, painful affairs. But you seem to disagree with this. You said that men actually take breakups harder.
Oh, I mean, isn't that kind of a trope, right? The guy's excited to be broken up to get out of the relationship at first, and
Then it haunts him
and
for
then it
years.
haunts him for years.
Yeah, I actually think they did a study about that. They did a study that says that women will feel the most intense amount of pain right after the breakup, but get over it, like fully eventually after a couple months, whereas men won't experience the same intensity level of the emotions, but they tend to not ever actually get over it. Like it's something that they always take as a loss.
Well, I think that, you know, aside from any of the points, however valid and well-reasoned they were in this piece, people were merely offended at the idea that you could criticize her for her dating life in general, because that's just like off limits. You can't bring that up.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. If you make it public, then it's fair game.
But at the same time,
And
this
every
might...
song that every album that she
Yeah.
drops, every song that she releases.
But then I looked into this author, and he's getting dragged right now by a lot of people because obviously her fans are like diehard. And I tweeted a picture of him, you know, from his author page, and I said, you know, sometimes you're not the right messenger. And I kind of stand by that. Like, you know, you can have something valid to say, but if you look like a dork like that,
That's me.
trust me,
I have
however
tons
dorky,
of valid stuff to
however
say.
dorky you think you are or you think you look, you are not nearly as dorky looking as that guy.
That's
the
why
dude-
it's fallen on deaf ears.
Maybe.
No, it hasn't fallen on deaf ears. That's the problem. It's fallen on very, very vigilant ears that are yelling at the guy.
Yeah, and you know, I do feel bad for him now because he's deleted his Twitter account and everything.
He should take a page out of my book and have no opinion on Taylor Swift whatsoever.
That might have been the more convenient route, but he felt principled that like, he had to say something.
Again, I saw this guy and he didn't exactly scream traditional nuclear family to me.
No,
Who is this guy? What's his name?
he's just a writer.
He's
His
just a
name is
writer.
John McLoyne.
I guess I can appreciate
Mac.
somebody pushing for the traditional family values from
MacLeone.
from somebody in Hollywood, but the idea that that's even a concern of modern day pop stars is hilarious and ridiculous.
Well, some people were saying that this is also a sexist double standard. One person said, no man has ever been chastised in the media for being a bad role model for boys because he was 34, unmarried, and childless. Newsweek should be ashamed to print this.
That's not why though. See, that's like their easy cop out. Like to me, the whole dating thing is small fish. Like the big picture is that I personally don't like her because I think that she promotes mental instability. She makes it look cute and funny to be crazy, like a crazy ex. And I that's how I've always felt about her. Like the vibe that I get from her music and her music videos is I'm like, you don't really seem stable. Like to go through 12 breakups in like 4 years, like you can't be right after, you know?
Yeah, but like-
and I mean, regardless of the breakups, like just the whole making it cute to be like messy. You know, I'm not a fan of that personally.
But you just know that like any Swiftie could argue you into the ground with all the reasons why that actually is like just a really clever way of like playing on the way that the media portrays her. So she's actually like You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
She's
it's
playing it
all
up.
like
But it's yeah.
They
It still
have
has
an
the effect.
explanation for quite literally everything this woman does. And I don't think she's getting hate for being 34, unmarried, and childless. Because clearly the entirety of that article was not about her being unmarried and childless at her age. It was about her tendency to have a revolving door of boyfriends and use that as fodder for her product that she's selling to people. Right? Like, it was the way that she goes about dating, not the fact that she's single.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing inherently wrong with being unmarried or childless at 34. Like, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that.
Right.
It's the decisions that get you there. If you made all the wrong decisions.
To the point of there was like another post that you had here, right? Another lady, an older lady.
Oh, yeah. Well, you could argue that Taylor Swift is a bad role model for young women, but I think far more often old women, like older women, women who are older than Taylor Swift herself, are listening to her and idolizing her. This one is 41. She says, this 41-year-old unmarried child-free woman had the best night of her life at Taylor Swift last night. And this is her in Dublin at the Taylor Swift concert, looking very excited. There she is.
Well, it's because time hasn't passed yet, and then you may want more for your life later, and then have a realization.
It's just like,
but what do I know?
There would have been no problem with you existing like that, like that's your life, but
Yeah.
you coped.
Yeah, because you could have done that with a kid. It's called a babysitter.
We got a
Just
20 from Coca 25. Any thoughts on Nicholas Fuentes? Do we have any thoughts to share, guys?
I'm the last person to ask.
No thoughts.
I don't have any thoughts.
Definitely not relevant to anything we talk about on this show, at least. But I know Tim has a lot of thoughts.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I saw some takes defending Taylor as well. Brittany Martinez from Evie tweeted about this piece saying, the Taylor Swift hate genuinely confuses me. There are 42-year-old single white female journalists who have written articles for years about how women should cheat on their men for emotional fulfillment, and singers who have bragged about drugging men and twerking on stage. Meanwhile, the woman who makes the internet seethe is one who's written romance songs for the majority of her life.
I mean, I think that's a really, really surface level analysis of one side of the argument. It's like in depth about the worst thing that Cardi B, or was it who was it? Not Cardi B. It was
Cardi B who talked about drugging
that
men.
she
Yes.
allegedly, again I have to state allegedly did.
Allegedly.
But then you go on the very surface level of what they're saying. The problem is with Taylor Swift, which is not that they're romance songs. It's that there's more context to them that you're leaving out of your straw man argument. Yeah.
So overall, like, do we have a verdict?
Luckily, I'm a guy, so I don't have to care.
But if you have a daughter one day, would you say that Taylor Swift is a good role model for...
No celebrity is a good role model for children. And if you're a parent, the last thing you should ever be doing is allowing them to idolize celebrities.
That is a very sane take.
Yes.
It is.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.